What do you do when your hot compost pile goes cold? All right, sorry about the wind today, folks. It's pretty windy. So anybody new to this system or to this channel, go back and watch what we're doing in terms of a chicken tractor on steroids for raising meat birds. Now, what you see here is finished compost. We got weeks 1 and 2. Right behind me, weeks 3 and 4. And then what just came out of the cage today is week 5 and 6 within this system. Now, just briefly, every single week within this system, we produce the equivalent of 1.5 cubic yards of compost. Now, as of late, because I've had so many irons in the fire, I kind of let this one get away from me. The one that's closest to the poultry netting down there. All right, in this 100-gallon tank, we have a compressed bale of alfalfa. Now, William is going to explain to you how we go about doing this. Now, we could leave that stuff and just let it age, but we're going to show you what to do if you get out there and your compost pile is completely cold.
So this compost pile, the reason this one went cold is because it got oversaturated with water, and then we also need to add nitrogen to it. So those two things will help heat it up, and then also the act of flipping it will introduce more air to it. I'm gonna go ahead and break this open, and you'll see that it's gone pretty anaerobic inside. It's really saturated in there. All right, so we're gonna treat this pile as a new 18-day compost pile. And we're gonna use the pre-existing compost as our carbon in this new pile. And whenever you create an 18-day compost pile, you wanna make sure you have a carbon base and a carbon top. And in between there, you layer your nitrogen and your carbon back and forth. So here we are with the alfalfa. And if you're gonna use alfalfa, make sure that you soak it in water, or else it'll become hydrophobic, or it already is hydrophobic, and that'll be counterproductive to your compost pile. So you're just gonna layer alfalfa, compost, or your carbon and nitrogen over and over again until you're out of carbon, basically, or out of one or the other. You wanna make sure you have a carbon top though. And then after we're done layering it, we're gonna go ahead and cover it with a tarp so we don't get any excess moisture increase or loss. We want just the right amount of moisture in this compost pile so it'll heat back up properly and finish.
All right, so that's a wrap. Remember, and I've talked about it before, that within this system, folks, if you have any aversions about doing any hard work, or you want to stay hands off, maybe this ain't the system for you, but if you don't mind getting out here, mixing it up, and it's going to require adjustment from time to time, because that's all part of the price that we see is raising our meat for free and also producing fantastic compost that you can't buy. There we have it in a nutshell. We're going to cover it up at this point, and then in 4 days I'll flip it. So like I said, it is a little bit of management intensiveness when it comes to this system. So link to this is how to start or how to build an 18-day compost pile, and we're basically going right back to that. So we're going to cover this up. We'll let it sit for 4 days, and then I'll flip it every other day. Probably won't take anywhere near that much because it's mostly broken down. We're just showing you what to do in terms of remediation if you have some of these problems. Now in the future, we're planning on doing something where we try to address all these issues and give you examples on how to fix them. So until next time, on behalf of William and Michelle, this is Billy, the Permaculture Pimp Daddy, where PIMP stands for Permaculture is my passion, because it is.